And we are live. What's up, family? Taralyn, Michelle, and Billy Wroe here. We're going to be talking about cultivating connections right after this. Oh, it's really
Right.
loud tonight.
Mm,
Right.
mm, uh.
Make you say, do the
That's when you like swing it, swing it.
Absolutely. Welcome, good people. Welcome, Billy. How you been?
I'm doing good. Friday, Friday. I was worried about Friday, but Friday feels like a good day. It feels like a good day to have a conversation and just melt away the work week and all the things that came Monday through Thursday.
I love the
How you
melting.
feeling?
I'm feeling the melting, the whole just.
Mm,
And you know what? Jeez. Coming into tonight, it's been quite a busy week. I was actually supposed to connect with you, but that did not happen. So I was really looking forward to tonight because when we had a brief moment to talk over tonight's topic, cultivating connections, I was like, oh yeah, not only is this timely, but then I get to connect with you and share this conversation with everybody else. I am looking forward to it a great deal tonight. So as you guys know, whenever we're starting off a topic, we always like to give a little bit of what came to our mind when we thought about this particular thing or hashed it over like we typically do. And when I thought about cultivating connections, I love this so much because I think that, at least for me, it was human nature to encounter folks and have superficial exchanges with folks. But as far as the actual the time that it takes to water that thing, to nurture that thing, to really allow myself to be vulnerable, to make a genuine connection that I could cultivate. That was always something that, first of all, I never thought about it like that earlier on. And then when I did, it really put me in a space to get to see me and how ill equipped I was to really cultivate and make the type of, actually, to first make those substantial connections and open myself up enough to cultivate them, because there's a space of vulnerability, I feel like, that's required to be able to create something that is going to be sustainable over the course of years with special folk in your life. And so the first thing that came to mind for me was how important it is to really know thyself, to be able to nurture fruitful relationships. That's the thing that came to me. So I'm looking forward to discussing that tonight. How about you?
So for me, it's actually interesting the timing of this particular segment
Mm,
because I I think about the nurture and the soil and all of the things that it takes to cultivate a crop, which in this case the crop is relationships. But actually today my Google photos gave me a memory of you and I in Hollywood, Florida, with my friends Tim and Kamala,
yeah.
and that was the first time that we actually physically met after knowing each other for years,
Yeah.
like years. And so, when I think about cultivating connections, the timing of this couldn't be more perfect in the sense of our own connection, where we are today, the fruitfulness of our relationship, the encouragement that's behind our relationship, and really I would go to the push for both of us to be our absolute best. That's when I think about cultivating connections. It's really about establishing those relationships that are going to have substance and meaning to your life, not
Yeah.
just the, oh well, we went to school together, oh, that's my cousin. Oh, that's my brother. That's my sister. But really deeply cultivating the connective, nurturing the connective tissue between the relationships that you're forging in your life. And so moving away, especially for me in this stage in life, moving away from that willingness to accept superficial relationships. Because
Mhm.
at some point, it's like, if we're connected, then what are we connected for?
Right.
Because if we're not connected for anything, and it's not from a space of usury, but it's from a space of like compassion, alignment, partnership,
Purpose. Purpose.
purpose. Absolutely.
Purpose. When I think about our relationship, I think about purpose. I mean, it wasn't until because there's never going to be any substitute for sharing space with someone, that exchange of energy within a room, even if you're not saying anything. It's just about having the auras of people within a room. We've been through so many different stages of life together. We both have talked of children, marriages that were now anymore, and then now there's new ones, and well, we ain't gonna get on the other side, but anyway, it's been a lot of changes going on, and
Absolutely.
we've been around each other through all of this, and then to think about that common thread with everything that you said, I think finding a space of purpose for the friendship and the relationship, and with all of the other members of our very close knit groups that we have, those relationships and how it mattered to us to really put ourselves out to invest in them, and then learning what that investment meant, not just for us but to each individual that really means something to us throughout the course of the growth and the nurturing. So really excited about things tonight. Before we dive right in and get like super deep, since we laid some foundation, you guys in the chat, please, oh, please share the show. We're going to be dropping that link. If you want to come up here and join us live on the virtual stage, you already know. Come on up here. You ain't got to stay in the chat with it. We would love to have you up here to participate in this conversation. Share, share, share if you would be so kind. What's up to Chinda? What's up to Key? Hey, Key. What's up, Crandall? What's up? Well, I got to scroll all the way up here. Oh,
We
JC.
got JC and Bruce.
JC and Bruce.
There's
Hey.
actually quite a few people in here, but I can't see everybody.
Right,
If they
right.
don't say anything, I can't see nothing. You don't say something, I can't see something.
Say something, people. Say something. But I think that this is such an important conversation, and especially because of the way things are now. It's a lot of craziness going on in the world, and because of what we see around us, sometimes it's easiest to just fall back and stay away. Everybody has a lot of different things going on. Billy, you oftentimes talk about the different ebbs and flows, and I think just the climate of all of the things going on around us can add different layers to cultivating relationships, to all of the different nuances that are going on in people's lives. And I know just from speaking to a couple of friends that I have, and even clients that I have, that taking things personally thing is a thing. you know,
Mm-hmm.
it's not always easy when we talk about cultivating, because it really requires a selfless approach, because
Right.
you see the big picture and you're looking for the long term, the end game when it comes to, and when I'm talking about the end game and long term, I'm talking about getting to the point where everybody's senior citizens together, and
Right.
that type of situation.
Cha
So
cha sliding on the cruise ship.
exactly, exactly. It's different when you're cha-cha on the cruise ship and you built that, as opposed to people that I just travel with. But you
Right.
really don't have that same type of chemistry and dynamic with those relationships, because there was not as much put into it on the front end. So, Coach, this is something I think that you're extremely gifted in, because you're, to me, I think, just one of my absolute favorites when it comes to the conversation of emotional intelligence, which I think plays a huge role in
Yes.
cultivating relationships. I mean, it's key, and it's so many different fine points that we can get into. What do you think, in your experience, you've seen as some of the bigger stumbling blocks that impede people from really being able to make the type of substantial connections that they want to make with people that are sustainable and run the long term, possibly toward that end game?
Ooh, so I'm gonna put myself on blast on this one. So this week's Wednesday word was very much about this level of emotional intelligence. And in the Wednesday word, what I was speaking about was the importance of reaching out. But the story that I spoke about was more so about the relationship between my wife and I, and how she reaches out to me, but my fear of being disappointed for like leaning on that and trusting that creates an anxiety within me that makes it to where when she's reaching out, I'm slapping her hand away, like, no, I can't trust that. I got me. I got me. And
Mm,
so when it comes to the emotional intelligence aspect, there, I'm never going to tell people to go against what your gut is saying. But also, it's not just what your gut is saying, understanding why your gut says it. So, like, when I took time to like reflect on my own self, where, okay, my wife is reaching out, but I'm not 100% willing to put both feet on that platform. Why? And it really went back to things in my own childhood where it's like, hey, I've kind of, I mean, my parents had my back, but at the same time, I kind of had to be on my own and do my own thing.
yeah.
And so to trust that there's this other human in the world that I could put both feet on and not have to worry about somebody saying, ha ha, pull the rug underneath my feet.
Mhm.
That's a scary space for me to be in. And so the scariness of that experience can cause you to create division or create distance in relationships. And when you're talking about cultivating, especially when I think about distance, I think about how far you are from the water supply. If you are too far from water, you're in a desert. And if you're in a desert, you can't cultivate the ground enough to produce a healthy harvest. If you're too far from the water supply in a relationship, your relationship is now in a desert, and whatever water was in that area is all the water that it has, unless you're willing to go out every day and pail back water to the location. And so from the emotional intelligence standpoint, I think it's very much about trusting your intuition, but questioning your intuition and not second guessing your intuition, not in that sense, but questioning why your intuition is telling you what it is about this person. I think about this when I might interact with somebody who is addicted to drugs. My intuition tells me, hey, you've been in the drug dealing, not drug dealing, that's a wrong response. You've been in involved in relationships where people have been addicted to drugs, and you understand that drugs are the priority. Trust that.
Yeah.
Trust that
Yeah.
before you go in and cultivate this relationship and say, hey, I thought we had this level of trust, and find out that you really didn't have the level of trust that you thought you had. So from the emotional intelligence side, it really is about trusting your instincts, but questioning those instincts to make sure that they're originating from the right place and not unresolved fears that you may have in your own life. Because for me, that's where my fear was coming with my wife. It was an unresolved fear of being let down, of being disappointed. Well, you can't disappoint me if I never put you in a position to be able to disappoint me.
Yeah.
However, in a relationship, especially a marriage, you kind of have to put yourself in a space to be disappointed, even if it means you're going to get disappointed. You don't have to put yourself in a space where you're recklessly getting disappointed about things, but there does have to be some form of risk to have another form of reward. What about for yourself when it comes to that?
I like that. Check the source. That's basically what I heard. Always got to check the source.
Mm-hmm.
I think I love that you talked about that risk to get the reward. I think too, just in hearing you speak, what's coming to me is expectations. Are they realistic? Because a person could fall short, but that doesn't mean that that's necessarily a deal breaker. I mean, I think
Right.
that for me, let me go ahead and put myself out there, which I do quite a bit. Uh, what what I will say is that for me, those unrealistic expectations I have for other people stem from having unrealistic expectations for myself.
Mm,
And I think that that's something that I really had to take a self check moment with. It's really easy to subscribe a bunch of emotions to yourself about falling short if you're not checking the source and understanding that how could you possibly succeed at that with the unrealistic expectations that you put out there. And we tend to see people the way we see ourselves. If you're somebody who tends to, tell little white lies, then you typically side-eyeing what other people say because you be lying. If you're somebody who tends to slip little things in your purse or in your pocket, you steal a little bit, still here, there, then
Still a
you
little bit.
there, then you tend, you know I could do. Then you tend to guard your things because even though you're not thinking of it consciously that way, sometimes we'll justify negative behaviors about ourselves, and then that's the lens that we're looking at life and people through. We'll take that into situations and then wonder why we're not really willing to take those risks so that we can get those rewards from people. So I think that um, one of the most important things that I've learned about cultivating relationships is it's so important for me to be aware that there's what I want when it comes to my connection with the person, but I have to ask myself, are you open and available and realistic about what you're willing to give to get what it is that you want? It's really easy to see what we want on the outside and then paint a picture of what that should look like and what the other party should do. But are you willing to expend the energy, take the time, and do the things that you need to do introspectively to grow, to be able to play your part in the relationship as well? So that's something that has been and continues to be a space of work, and it's fruitful. It definitely makes having those types of relationships possible. I love the fact that good, bad, up or down, we have the type of relationship where we can talk about those things. We can talk
Right.
about those things, and it keeps the climate the same, no matter what it is that we happen to be going through. But it took some time to get to a space where I would open myself up to be able to trust my own instinct and intuition to allow myself to connect with somebody like you and some of my other very close friends in that way. It's so worth it, though.
Absolutely. When you talk about is understanding what you expect from the cultivation process. I
Yeah.
think about like in an analysis, we say, is the juice worth the squeeze? If I squeeze all these lemons and I'm gonna get a teaspoon of juice, then why the heck am I squeezing all these lemons? I'm better off eating the lemon. Like,
Exactly.
but I think about that from the relationships that I have. And I mean, I have relationships. I was just thinking this morning, actually, it's a friend of mine's birthday. I'm like, man, I've known this person for 26 years. I got other friends that I'm closely approaching 40 years of friendship.
Crazy.
Um, and it's just like to be in this space to where all that has been poured into these relationships, I'm very clear what my expectation is from it. And it's not my expectation of the person, it's my expectation of the relationship. And I think that's where things begin to change, because when you like me, when we just enforce our own unrealistic expectations that we have for ourselves onto others, it never works out. But when
Yeah.
we can say, hey, this is what it means to be a close friend, this is what it means to be in my inner circle. When we can take that, now all of a sudden the expectations are not us for the other person. Our expectations are being established by the relationship itself.
Yeah.
Well, if this is the type of friend that I am to this person, if this is the type of relationship that this person and I have, well, then this is what's expected of that. And
Right.
that becomes much more reasonable than, I got to answer the phone every time you call. No, I don't. No, I don't. Like,
It's
that's
okay.
that's not reasonable. But what happens is I think sometimes we will create those unreasonable expectations
Yeah.
and say, I got to answer the phone every time they call, and then uh we become kind of frustrated by the fact that, dang, they calling again and I got to answer the phone to be that friend in this relationship. And then it gets real bad when you call and they don't answer.
Exactly.
Because there's times where you and I we'll call each other and it'll take us a couple of days to get back to each other. I'll be
It's not
like,
exactly. It's not about that. That's what that cultivating and building a strong, a solid foundation from which you grow, and you grow authentically.
right,
That's the difference. It's not about that. neither one of us need that from each other. You know, we know each
Right.
other well enough to know that if we don't connect, it's because we can't. That's
Right.
it. It's not personal, you know, but allowing ourselves to grow to that space. So I love that you mentioned that point. I wanna ask real quick, because first of all, thank everybody for tuning in tonight. You guys like Friday better? Okay, okay, that's cool. That's cool.
Right.
Let me ask you guys this in the chat, just in listening to the conversation. What has been, just reflection time, what has been a challenging space for you when it comes to cultivating relationships, even if you had a space where that's no longer a thing for you? What was one of the biggest blockades you had to overcome? Please, oh, please drop that in the chat. Guys, if you haven't shared the broadcast already, please do share. You can follow that link and come on up here if you're not scared. You know, I'm just saying.
Right.
Yes,
Right.
yes, yes.
Let's bring in some of the things from the chat because
Catch up.
I want to catch it up a little bit. Let me see if I can type these words correctly, then I can catch up the chat and put
Yes,
my proper punctuation.
exactly.
Let's see. So, starting off from the beginning, it looks like Brother Key came in first. Says timing is perfect for this topic. Literally, what is a major topic in strategy in today's real estate market? Absolutely, and
Oh,
other sales industries during inflation and forecasted recession. Companies are trying to figure out how do we attract fearful, hesitant buyers. It's relationship. If you don't have the relationship right now, guess what? You ain't gonna be able to do attract somebody to spend their money.
spend their
Just doesn't
money.
work that way.
Yep.
Um,
And
also, we
spending
have
money is an emotional thing. So there has to be an emotional connection. Some type of
right.
some type of something that makes them feel compelled beyond what you're going to offer them or give them for their money. It has to be beyond that. They got to be connected.
Yeah, also, I think it also, when you have cultivated the proper relationships, they have a way of putting a person at ease.
Absolutely.
Um, I can think you're a subject matter expert in many, many things, but the thing that will resonate with me the most is the calm and the surety that I have in the conversation that we are having. And so that comes when you cultivate that level of trust and that experience of um, really that consistent experience of continuity. Um, and then the other thing that that made me think about was I just received an email today saying that apparently there's one of my mortgages has the ability to be transferred over to somebody else, and it was like, wow, okay, so I would, in essence, I don't know how this works. Maybe Key knows how all this works, but I don't know how this works. But in essence, I could take what my rate is right now, which is way lower than what today's rates are. I could take that rate, sell my house to somebody who apparently I would have to have a relationship with, and then they will be able to assume my loan. Obviously, they pay me for it, but they'd assume my loan and keep my rate. Like, I'm trying to think, in what world would I want to sell my house like that? But if I did want to sell my house like that, who do you think I'm going to sell it to? Some stranger on the street or somebody who I know who wants to buy a house?
Absolutely. It's not.
So that cultivation brings benefits that I feel you're not there because you're looking for the benefit, but you're the person who comes to mind because of the relationship that's been established. Let's catch up the chat really quick, and then we'll bring up our guest. Looks like Crandall says, I just received my first LLC 2 weeks ago. Cultivating relationships here in Chicago are vital for what's next for me. Absolutely. That is a vital part. Like, even the job that I have today is because of relationships that I've cultivated. I also see here, Shannon says survival mode leads to straight arm distancing. Yeah, I forget. I was watching or listening to something, and they were talking about how you've operated in survival mode. For some of us, from very young children, operated in survival mode for so long that that's all we know how to do. And so we're constantly preemptively destroying relationships, just trying to keep them at an arm's distance. And then I think I had one more. There we go. One more. Facebook user says, I find I'm better at cultivating relationships, but still have more room to grow. It's a practice. There's no way around it. The more you practice it, the better you get at it.
Yeah.
So Definitely appreciate it. With that being said, let's go ahead and bring our guest up for a little bit. This is one of my godfathers, actually. I'm going to bring Coach Cranberry Rankin. What's going on with you, Pops?
Oh, so much. So I've been dreaming, and
Okay.
I'm working on. I have what's called pop-up spoken word um, events that I'm scheduling. Working on my first one will be the 26th of November,
Yes.
and we've had three spoken word shows that are open mics, and it's worked really well.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I'm excited about what's next. It's called, I don't know, Billy, you might even remember this. I was supposed to do a talk show years ago called Another State of Mind. Well, that's what I'm doing. That's the name of my LLC, is Another State of Mind, and we're looking to be a part of the solution. What's going on in Chicago with all the negativity that's happening with the shootings and so on. And so um, and then I watched Coach Prime at Jackson State in Mississippi.
Mm-hmm.
And, I really am an academic and motivational coach. And so I did it for Sac State for their basketball program. And so I I just developed an actual letter to him. I could text to him to see if they're in need of an actual life coach, academic coach, and spiritual coach. And so, and and I froze because I said, oh my God, could I really do that? Could
Absolutely.
this be more than a dream? Because I actually have a relationship with him from years ago. I've been praying for him since 2008.
Mm.
He came to Sacramento to speak to our California Conservation Court, and I was there as part of the panel. And then we got to talk afterwards, and I made a commitment to pray for him, and I've been praying for him and his family since 2008. And as Billy knows, when I make a commitment to pray, I really do pray for them. Like I pray Psalm 91 over Billy every day. And and all the students that were part of our former youth groups and organizations that I've been a part of. And so I've been praying for him, for Chris Webber, the basketball player. So that, same thing. He came back to Sacramento for a special thing. And I told him that I still prayed for him. And he leaned over and he said, Crandall, never stop praying for me. And so now my sister's redeveloping part of a project that's redeveloping the south side of Chicago, several communities in the south side of Chicago. And one of the guys that was a business partner with Chris Webber was there. And I had just prayed for him the night before and said, Lord, how can I get back in contact with him? I want to let him know that I still pray for him, expecting God to protect and guard he and his brothers and his family. And I met the guy at an event that my sister was hosting. She opened up an actual, um, what is this thing called? A community place in honor of Mahalia Jackson. And I was there as part of what was taking place that day, and met this guy that was partners with him. So what I'm saying is that because of that relationship, other relationships are now getting ready to be started. And because of the relationship, when you sent me your book, like you know how many people have are benefiting from your book just I because of the relationship that we have, that you would send me a copy of it, and now other people are saying, "Oh, really?" And they're wanting to know what you have to offer, and they're buying your book. So I'm thankful because since what, the seventh grade,
Yeah,
like
seventh
now,
grade. That's what we met.
and and now, like, and I share that. I've let one of the other guys that I'm actually a mentor to now. I let him read the dedication that you wrote in your book to me, and it was like, you really are a lifelong mentor. And I say, yes, I am. And so
Mm,
I'm thankful. It made it's made such a difference in my own life when I was, what you don't know, sis, I almost died in 2019, and God healed me of cancer and 9 other diseases. And so, and because of the relationships, because of all the people that I've sown into, and I've actually been able, you all help to keep me alive. And I'm trying not to get emotional right now. But really, it was, like it was being able to say that, to know that you all were praying for me. You all wanted me to live. And therefore, it made me want to live even more.
mm. That's a very important aspect, and I think it goes back to that relationship setting the expectation, the almost the relationship becoming the gravity of the entire situation. No different than our relationship with God. You create a relationship with the Creator. It's the relationship that creates that connection and that gravitational pull for you
Right.
to want to serve, for you to want to be empowered. I think that's what happens with us in our own individual relationships with one another, where we create this gravity. And in times when we would want to give up, times when we would want to just accept the negative, in those times, that relationship creates that gravity that pulls us back to the center of that relationship. And Crandall has known me for, like he said, many years. So he's known me when he's had to show up at my house and they had to pray over me because I was either depressed, suicidal, or dealing with whatever ailment I was dealing with that multiple times in my life. Whew.
Oh, God.
But
Yes,
but
I do remember.
but he was a central part of who I grew up to be as a man, and a central part of teaching me the compassion for people. And there's one thing, and I have to share this. There's one thing that I remember, and this is back when you still lived in Atomas, and it was shortly after mom had passed away.
Mm,
And I remember we were talking, and we were talking about how, like, how you felt disappointed about the fact that she had passed, and that she didn't receive her healing. And I remember you were like, I wanted that testimony for us. I remember this conversation like it was yesterday. You said, I wanted that testimony for us. And I said, Crandall, you already have a testimony. The testimony was what it is to be a husband and love your wife in the face of illness, and to still walk with her hand in hand through the neighborhood and be that true provider. Like I said, there's no undoing that because you can't go back and undo it. That was the testimony that I received from the relationship. And so when
mm,
you think about, like, bringing us back to cultivating relationships, there are some very indirect but super powerful and potent uh, cultivation things that take place that truly do shape who we are and who we become. And so I just got to give you that. We gotta move on to the show. I'm gonna have you drop, but definitely I appreciate you coming in on live. You'll always be my spiritual father. And I'm looking forward. I'm gonna have to get out there to Chicago to visit and see what you have going on with the spoken word. So
And I have to say too, congratulations on your LLC. I'm originally from Chicago. I know all about spitting that spoken word. It's hot out there. So I know it's going to be nothing but successful. And I cannot wait to come back to the Shy and have my seat at the show. I'm going to be checking for you. I want to know what's up with what you're doing. Do you have a calendar I can follow? Can I get on there to spit? I want to know everything.
I've got my IG is Coach_Crandall 6576.
I'm going right now. Mm-hmm. Thank you so much for sharing your story. And also, too, I want to say, to Cultivating Connections, one of the things that really stuck out to me during the whole entire time that I heard you speaking, we actually touched on it a little bit earlier. And I thank God so much that you came up tonight and decided to share with us. In listening to you speak, you've given so much of yourself. And then my condolences to you on losing your wife. You've given so much to people, and even in the face of that challenge, you still were able to share. You are a perfect example of what I was talking about earlier when I talked about the selflessness that comes with cultivating relationships. It's not always easy. It's not always something that's comfortable. It's not always something that we feel as though we're equipped to do or that we should have to do. But what you get back in return, fast forward to you going through what you were going through, and because you cultivated those relationships when it wasn't easy, when it didn't seem doable, when you probably doubted if you had what other people needed, when you actually needed strength for yourself, you're giving to other people. You came across a time in your life where, because you cultivated those relationships, those people were able to pour back into you the same way that you poured into them. So I'm just now meeting you, and I can't help but say I salute, King, everything that you've been. And thank you so much for modeling what it's like to be an example of selflessness when cultivating relationships. Thank you so much for coming up and chatting with
Oh,
us
you're
today.
welcome. God bless you. God
You
bless
as
you both. Thank you.
Catch it. Oh man, that's I'm telling you, he's been with me through some through some I can't there's so much, it's been some that's all I could say.
That's what I'm talking about. It's so wonderful to have just beautiful souls like this, like him, walking this planet. And people, that's what it's about. This, when it comes to relationships, and I'm gonna say this: we are all created to be of service. We have our own individual journeys that we're on, right? And that's never
Mhm.
going to change. But the journey is meant to be shared. It's not just about what we're giving to other people. Coach Crandall is a perfect example of what it is that we do for ourselves when we put ourselves out there to cultivate these relationships. The journey being shared is how we truly expand and grow and leave our mark in this world. And so, if you guys leave this conversation with absolutely nothing, at least at minimum, take from it the importance, not just for others, but first and foremost for yourself, because we can only give what we have. Can't pour from an empty cup, right? So part of us filling ourselves and building ourselves is allowing ourselves to grow and trust ourselves enough to put ourselves out there in the most difficult times, to cultivate relationships with other people and go through the process of the nuances of nurturing the different areas in which we would have to grow. Some of the spaces that are going to be extremely uncomfortable for us to be in. We run from the discomfort when actually our spirit, it being free and us being free from all of the things that binds us, it lies in our ability to be able to run through it, not away from it, around it, through it. And so I think that that's really what this conversation at the core of it, it's about. What are you willing to run through so that
Mhm.
you can realize what you want in this world within yourself? What are you willing to run through to get there?
Absolutely. Sometimes you got to run through yourself, unfortunately, because you be in the
Okay.
way. Really
This,
quick, I'm going to catch this up in the chat.
yeah.
It looks like Key Bryant says, understanding what is valuable for that relationship. In other words, how to be valuable to individuals. I find valuable, especially when they don't know how to convey what's valuable to them. That is a challenge. But I think that that comes from listening with intent. One of the things that since I've been doing First Row, I don't remember when I started this. That's wild. I don't remember what I started to do more, but as long as whenever I started doing First Row, what I realized is it taught me the ability to listen for the lesson and the experiences that I was having. So when I was younger, I would just have an experience and it was the experience. It was like, okay, she likes me. We went out, whatever. Okay, great. That was the experience, but there was no learning associated with the experience. And when I started First Row, I really started listening to life. Like, what are you trying to teach me? What am I trying to hear? What am I not hearing?
Yeah.
And when it comes to cultivating connections, sometimes people don't have the vocabulary or are not articulate enough to articulate what they see in the relationships that would create that gravity. But if you're a life learner and if you're a listener and you're listening intuitively to the experience that you're having with people, then I feel like you're even able in some cases to uproot relationships, because we haven't even got to that part of the cultivation process.
Right.
But then you're able to uproot some things out of your life a lot faster versus having that feeling where it's like, how come I'm always attracting the same type of guy? How come I'm always attracting the same type of woman? No. We're going to uproot that and we're going to cultivate the space that we want to attract the type of woman that we want to attract the type of man that we want to attract the type of partners. And I don't mean partners in the sense of relationship to being intimate, but intimate partnership with friends and family. How do we cultivate that space? The other thing that we had here in the chat, it says, Facebook user says, sometimes the grind causes me to be busy. Absolutely. And I have to slow down to building and cultivate relationships. You know, it is very easy to allow work to rush you along, to allow you to be too busy to do things. And I mean, I just experienced this past week with my son who lives with me, where he's going through some therapy, and I've sat in on a session with him. And the therapist was like, maybe you should come more often to the therapy sessions. All right, cool, I'm down. But one of the things that he said was, hey, I want you guys to try to play this game. There's this game called It Takes Two. And in this game, It Takes Two, you literally have to do things like, you can't beat the game alone. You have to play the game with somebody to beat the game. And this is a really big struggle for me because I'm dealing with behavioral issues with my son. So it's like, I don't want to give you the reward of playing a game, but I'm going to take the advice. We're playing this game. And as we're playing this game, I'm learning new things about my son through play, which is not something that I would typically use to cultivate a relationship of communication. And so we were on this little part where we're like flying and we both kind of control this glider that we're on based on where our character's at, middle, left, right. And I am like, okay, great. Which way do you want to go? He says left. All right, cool. So we're on the left side of this glider. We turn left. We get to the middle. Now we have another decision to make, left or right. Me, I don't communicate. I make the assumption you wanted to go left last time. You still want to go left until you tell me you don't want to go left. You want to go left. Well, he went right. I went left. Our glider crashed because of that lack of communication and that lack of cultivation between how we communicate, where I'm realizing with my son, things are not just the decision has been made and that's where I stick. Things are very fluid for him, where it's like, well, I went left last time. Now I want to go right. Now I want to go right again. Now I want to go left. It's very fluid. For me, I'm like, you said left last time. We didn't say anything again, so we're still going left. And so it causes us to have to slow down, because normally on that day of the week, I'm either getting ready for the Wednesday word or resting before the Wednesday word or doing some extra work, and that grind is just pushing me forward. But to intentionally slow down, to cultivate probably one of the most important relationships in my life is important. And so when cultivating a process, it is always important to remember that the things that would push or rush that process along can actually damage your harvest later on. Oh, well, I'm gonna just throw these seeds on the top soil. Well, they're all gonna wash away, and you're gonna have one apple tree instead of an orchard. Good luck. You still did, you still did a bunch of work, but you
Right.
only had one tree because you didn't do it properly. And
Right.
so, definitely, when it comes to cultivating and slowing down, don't allow that grind to force you through something, because man, it'll get you every time. Facebook user also says we need more men for boys like this. I think that was in regards to Crandall. And then Key says, facts, same here. Crandall has been a vital and integral part of our lives and community. Love you, Crandall. I'm telling you, he's like the neighborhood father. Crandall can make a U-turn on a bus on a levee bypass road. And then JC says, y'all got me teary-eyed. I think that was what Crandall was up.
Yeah.
But I do have a question for you, in the sense of, I just got done talking about the uprooting process. What happens when you cultivate something and you might have roots established in it, but you're realizing the other person is not on the same page or spectrum that you are into what the relationship could or can be, or maybe should be, or maybe you want it to be. I don't really know which one that would be. But what is your perspective on how to intelligently uproot relationships in a way that's not self-damaging?
Well, a couple things come to mind for me. Number one, just because a person isn't as rooted as you are does not mean that there isn't a root system in progress. That's where the whole meeting people where they are thing comes in, because one person may establish deeper roots faster, but maybe their internal work, their life experiences, the different things within family. There's so many different variables that help to form where we are and form how we process and how we grow. So we know that's very individual. So I don't think that, wow, there's so many different things to consider for a person that may not be as deeply rooted as you. So the first thing I would say is, just because their roots are not as deep does not mean that they're not there. I would say the exploration process, and then to the point that you talked about with communication, oftentimes we'll see those situations and we start to try to determine what move we're going to make without actually having those deep, meaningful conversations with the other party. If we're talking about cultivating relationships that are going to be sustainable, so we're seniors on the boat together doing a line dance, then that would mean that there would be, or there shouldn't be, a space where these types of conversations cannot be had. And I mean, spoiler alert, when you're having these conversations, you're making yourself vulnerable. But I would want to know before I invest any more time, emotion, or things like that, if this person is ready and willing to go to the space that I imagine us going. Do you feel the same way about this as I do? And I know some people watching may be like, yeah, right. But that's the problem. We're not willing to have those types of conversations with people that we say mean the most to us. So if you're approaching that from the vantage point of seeing if we're on the same page with this, then I would say start at that space. Now, let's just say for the sake of conversation, that's a space that you've explored, and for whatever reason, you feel the way you feel about this person and you wish it were different, but they're just not on the same page with you. Well, the process of uprooting, once you have this communication, wouldn't be one that I think would be damaging, because there's an understanding that you're going in opposite directions with where you want the relationship to go. The only way it would be damaging is if you're not actually having the conversation, if you're not establishing where you both are within the friendship. Because again, I'm not talking specifically about intimate relationships. I'm talking about friendships which still require a certain type of an intimate connection, if you know what I mean. So if you're in a space where you've had that communication and you're clear that for whatever reason you guys are not on the same page with that, then I think that you get to choose then what's the best way for you to disconnect and not disrupt your emotional because it's already going to be emotional, but not disrupt too much your mindset and emotionally where you are. I wouldn't put the onus of the other person and how they choose to navigate on their side on me, because we're clear that we're not on the same page. It's up to them to see to how they want to do things, but I would say proceed forward with what's going to make work, what's going to work best with you, however that disconnection would be. And that's going to be based on the type of relationship, what the history is, how intertwined families and things like that may be, if there are relationships with children and things involved. And, so the whole lots of different variables with that. But that would be the starting point for me when you're talking about accepting that I don't think that this is a thing that's working for us. We're not on the same page. And what can I do that's going to be healthy for me? And I got to say, there is nothing wrong in these situations with sometimes selfishly choosing what works best for you. Intention does matter. It does matter. If you're not going about a situation maliciously, it is not mean to choose to take care of you and allow the other person to take care of them. I think some of the most poisonous indoctrination that we've gotten is that you're in relationships, it's up to you to take one for the team. Nah.
Oh. No.
Nah,
I hope my wife is watching.
Nah, son, that's not how it's supposed to go, So that's a mindset that, and especially as a mindset coach, I don't like. I know, I know that it's toxic. And I know that conditioning, that mindset is, I think that anyone who subscribes to that feels like that's the way it's supposed to be, those people tend to be opportunists. If someone, you can have relationships that for whatever reason, you're not on the same page. And if somebody is not looking to get something from you that they're not willing to give, then they're going to welcome you doing what you need to do to protect yourself, because that's something that you would share with each other. People care about each other all the times, and all the time the relationship doesn't work, but there's still a mutual respect and a mutual care that goes into the separation process. This is the reason why the communication component is so important. So I think that understanding that you don't know somebody to take one for the team. You don't owe anyone to do that. It is okay to selfishly do what you need to do for you to move forward.
No, I'm with that. That's interesting, the communication aspect, because when my wife and I were first dating, we started off with, okay, let's just see what hanging out is. Like, what, I might not be here in Utah in a year. 5 years later, I'm still here. But I may not be here. So let's just take this first year, go through enjoying each other's company, and moving from that space into, okay, we see a future here, and I'm probably not leaving Utah, because it kind of grew on me, and I was like, I think I'm going to stay here. And I remember her being very clear about her communication on, hey, I want to be with somebody to the ends of marriage, not to the ends of being a girlfriend. So, so like, we can date, but at some point, if we're not moving towards the marriage mark, you'll be a really good friend. But you won't be somebody that I am exclusively with, giving you all my years of dedication, loyalty, and all those other things. And then all of a sudden you decide, I want to break up with you, and it's, we out. So I think that that's very important, because it gave, though I think we were in alignment, I was used to being in relationships where it was assumed and not communicated. And so to have that communication take place, it was very clear, like, even when we would have arguments, for me to be in a space where it's like, okay, do you see this person as the person that you can marry? And there's times where she would drive me up the wall, and I'd be like, but she would be a good wife for me.
Mm-hmm.
And that is something that even now that we're married, that I'm able to use as kind of like my compass and my guiding light, that even when we do have tiffs or whatever, to be able to say, hey, look, at the end of the day, I'm still choosing you. I'm still choosing us at the end of the day, I still choose this gravity because I
Right.
feel like this gravity is keeping us both from flying into the sun or out into somebody else's solar system. That
Right.
might not be as good for us. And so that communication aspect is very critical, because I could also see that if our situation changed
Mhm.
because of our communication, if it wasn't working for us any longer, I think that we could amicably decide, hey, this is something that we're going to need to uproot and start to decommission to move in a different direction.
Yeah.
But a lot of people don't want to have that first expectation. Like, I mean, it could be something as simple as I remember her asking me, hey, do you want to have more kids? I was, heck no. I hope I can tell you that I do not want more children. And she was like, okay, well, I was making sure because I don't want to have any more children. I have a daughter who's an adult. I'm not really trying to start all the way back over. So if you want somebody who wants that, if you want to have kids, then you want somebody else. Like those criteria, those standards, establishing that foundation makes it so much easier to cultivate without having to play the guessing game or
Yeah.
play the matching. Remember the matching game when we were kids? You have all your cards turned over, you flip
Right.
one over. I think I remember seeing the two over there. You flip one, oh, they're in a match. Like,
Playing
why,
that with
why?
your life.
Yeah, but you playing that game with your life and your relationships. No, we're
No.
not playing the matching game. It's like we're turning over all the cards and saying, hey, do you see a two there? Because if you don't see a two and I see a two, then that's not a match and that's a problem. We could probably move on from playing this game because we're never going to be in alignment. So I really like that aspect that you bring in, the communication aspect, to be able to communicate amicably, even if it is the is it the dissolution of the relationship.
Yeah.
um
Absolutely. Yeah.
I think that that's really important. So
I think.
I
I
don't
think.
know.
Oh no. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, I was gonna say I don't know. I was gonna say what you got.
I think that what happens in a lot of situations, honestly, look, life is pretty straightforward, right? If you want to know what you should do, look to what scares the hell out of you. Okay, that's what you
Mm,
should be doing, because when we choose not to have those conversations, if we just take a moment to pause, like right where we are, just go back 10 years. That ain't that far, right? How many times should you have had a conversation and you didn't? Tell me about that. There's a story attached to it. I know it is. Tell me that story. And it is ridiculous. It's so asinine and crazy and off the rails that you'd be like, yeah, bro, why you do that? You know, we continue to do that over and over again because I think that what we imagine that conversation is going to be like is so much bigger than if we just had the experience and learned what it would be like. There's like this
right,
guessing game, this built up anticipation with the anxiety and the fear. And then you play out, you play both roles in your mind. Well, I'm gonna say, then she gonna say, and then she gonna say, and then I'm gonna say, and then we gonna say, and then she gonna run outside, and then I'm gonna be like, I ain't running after her. And you know, you had this whole scenario going on. And when you get finished with all of that, then there are feelings attached to that. And at the end of the day, you still didn't have the conversation. So how do you know
right,
any of that? You know, I think that it's so important for all of us to keep in mind that our minds are powerful machines that we give data to do what we want it to do. It's going to feed on whatever we give it. And if we continue to give it a bunch of fear, we continue to give it a bunch of doubt, we continue to build up the anxiety, all attached to a what if instead of just having the moment, then we waste so much time, the same amount of time that we spend avoiding what could be. We could have the conversation and live in and decide what is going to be. And I think that that's probably the most important thing that I've learned, and I'm continuing to learn through the journey. The practical application is always going to be the key to the reward. And so our
mm,
goal, my goal at least, is to practically apply as much as possible, good, bad, indifferent. And then as I go through these different channels and processes, I get to take from it what has worked and what hasn't worked. But I'll never get the opportunity to do that if I'm just acting out everything in my mind and not actually having the experience.
Yeah. Oh man. I've had many of those. I call those dreams because that's the only place in the world where you are everybody, every character is in your dream. And folks be having these vivid dreams or daydreams of, and then I said, like you said, and then they said, and then I said, and they had a whole argument with you. By the time you walk in the door, they mad at you about the argument they had with you by themselves.
With themselves.
What you talking?
You wasn't even wearing that outfit in there, man, in your conversation. You changed. Oh, crazy.
Oh, so you just take a change of clothes to work with you, huh? No, I don't.
Okay, the games we play. You know what? This has been a wonderful conversation. It has. The chat, you guys, thank you so much for your participation in the chat. It has been amazing. Amazing. Final thoughts, my friend.
Final thoughts when it comes to cultivating relationships. I would say I'm going to agree with you on it comes down to the communication, understanding what it is that you're seeking, what it is that you're pouring into, understand what it is that you're getting out of, not in the usury sense, but in the sense of what is the benefit to you. Yeah. Understanding those things and communicating those things and reflecting upon those things. I think that's really the crux of cultivating connections with people. And lastly, I would say it's a customized process. It's not a one size fits all process. I am, to a lot of people, JC will tell you this, to a lot of people, I am their best friend. But my best friend's name is Jennifer. And that's who my best friend is. But to a lot of people, I'm their best friend. And it's because the cultivation process of the connection is customized to them. It's not the one size. Well, this is, I mean, trust me, you get some general things with my relationships because it's who I am. But at the end of the day, I cultivate relationships on a customized level because that is what creates the deepness and the richness and the flavor of the connection that makes it unique and it makes it a unique form of gravity to the two individuals involved. What about for yourself?
I think for me, when I think about cultivating connections, one of the most important things that stands out for me is kill expectations. I think that expectations kill relationships most of the time. You go into it with what you feel like it should be instead of putting that energy into navigating what the experience is with the person and learning what it's going to be. You know, that whole expectation thing puts a lot of unknown in there when you don't have to expect anything. You just show up, make it clear where you are, where you want things to go, and work on that with that person. You don't have to look at what could be, should be. You can just create what you want it to be. And as long as it's an effort that's being put forth on both sides, that's going to get you to where you want to be in the end. So that's how I see that. I really do believe that you should be the one to close us out.
All right, I got you. Well, as always with the show, I don't know why my brain wants to say Wednesday Word. I think it's because I'm used to doing our show first and then the Wednesday Word, and now I've done the Wednesday Word first. It's confusing me. But as always with the show, we're constantly engaging and looking through the comments in the chat to pull out some tools for what we can take with us, our takeaways. And so today on the Coach's Playbook, there's 3 tools that I want to share with you and 1 bonus tool. But the very first tool in the Coach's Playbook is our journey is meant to be shared. Really, what cultivating connections is all about is about sharing our journey. It's scary to share. It's scary to be honest and open. And I think somebody's comment said, thank you for being open about your relationship with your son. That used to be something that was scary because I was scared of the judgment that would come. Now I'm just like, look, I mean, if y'all relationship with y'all kid is perfect, congratulations to you. That's not my situation. But our journey is meant to be shared because it's truly what deepens. It's almost like I said, it adds that flavor and richness to the experience. You know, you can have a roux with some chicken broth, or you could have what we was talking about making that roux.
Yes, yes, sir.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
But you can have a roux that's just like chicken broth but no seasoning, or you can have something that take time with butter and flour and water and broth and seasonings, and that just builds a richness of flavor. And when you join your journey with another person's journey to cultivate that connections, adds a richness to your journey individually through life and that relationship that you have with them. Tool number 2 is communicate your desire to cultivate. I've heard communication like 5 or 6 times on the show tonight. Communicate, 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 communicate,
Yeah.
communicate. Even going back to what Crandall said, you're speaking to somebody and you're communicating, hey, I'm still praying for you. You
Yeah.
have to communicate that. They don't know that. They like, it's good to see them. I remember them. There's familiarity, but to communicate that, hey, I haven't forgotten about you.
Yeah.
Cultivate that connection. And now the outcome of that is in new connections that are established, that person will probably be like, this is really a quality person that is going to care about you and for you beyond this moment. That cultivates that relationship. But communicate your desires to cultivate. Um, don't be stingy. I'm gonna say that. Don't be stingy with that communication.
Yes.
That will help someone understand where you want to go. Because if you're communicating that, yeah, you'll meet some people who'll be like, yeah, that sounds good, and they don't really align with that. And time will kind of shake that out for you. But
Yeah.
for somebody who truly does align with that, I think about my relationship with my brother Key. When we connected on inspiration, once we connected, that was it. Our connection went from like, hey, we know each other, we were in the choir together, it's my boy, I got his back if I see him in a fight, to like, no, that's my brother, that's my family. Like, if I have to pull up to help, I'm pulling up to help.
Yeah.
So that cultivation, that communication, truly allows for those who truly want to build a relationship with you, deeper connections with you, to have the opportunity to do so. And it also gives you the opportunity to do so in reverse. um, then tool number 3 is customize the process. And again, for myself, when it comes to cultivating connections, I have, maybe I'll self-proclaim myself as like a master networker. Like, I've really learned how to cultivate deep connections, depending on the environment. If it's a work environment, I know how to cultivate allyship. If it's a spiritual environment, I know how to cultivate allyship. If it's an inspirational, if it's a romantic, I know how to cultivate connections, because I'm very intentional about the things that I'm doing to help bring the connection or help deepen the connection. The thing is also when it's a customized process, you're able to see sometimes sooner, because it's not a whole bunch of fluff, that things are not in alignment, and you can take the steps back necessary to fall back into disconnecting or uprooting that connection and removing it from your life if it doesn't serve a purpose. And then I have a bonus tool here for you. Allow the relationship to create gravity. This goes back to those expectations and you being both parties in your mind having the conversation back and forth. Allow the relationship to create the gravity. Allow the expectations to be established within the relationship. It's almost like signing a treaty and saying, here are the terms of the treaty. We agree to these terms, and those terms act as the gravity in which the relationship rotates around. So when there is maybe a breach of trust in that gravity, you're able to address it and say, "Hey, yo, I'm feel like I'm spinning out of control a little bit, and here's why." And then you can have those conversations on the back end and say, "Do we want to fix the gravity, or do we want to let the gravity decimate?" I think dissipate,
Mhm.
one of
This.
those two words.
Mhm.
Thank you. Dissipate. So those are the tools that we have for you this evening. Man, Friday, it's going to be a long break for them.
It is, but at least now we know they like Friday. You know they like Friday.
This is, this is true. True.
Yeah.
Um, so we are at the end of the show, and if you did not know, now you do know that we are actually on break through the year end on Taralyn, Michelle, and Billy Wroe live. We will come back at the beginning of the year for season 3. You guys got 26 episodes out of us. If you have not caught every single episode, go back and watch some of those on the replay. I'll still be up until I think December for the Wednesday Word. Then I take my one month break on the Wednesday Word. You can still catch some content from Taralyn on The Grind Defined on Fridays at 4 p.m. So that should be up and running. So if you want some more content, where I know Jose, I didn't see him in the chat, but he's always more. Yeah. Head over to The Grind Defined to catch the podcast, son. But, I definitely appreciate all the love and support you guys have given both of us throughout this year. We've been running since March, and so
that time is flown by.
You want to do a show? Yeah, let's do a show. All right.
We do. We don't know. We gonna show up and figure it out.
Exactly. 1 year later, about to be already lapped around the sun. So
yeah.
Thank you so much. Is there anything you want to close with the people on before we close off for the season?
Just the love, the support, the interaction, the engagement. It's been amazing. You guys, it's one thing for us to have these conversations together, but it's another thing to bring a community of people into it. And we all just learn and grow together. So this would not be as fruitful as it has been if it had not have been for the interaction with you guys, the different messages, emails, people coming on over to The Grind Defined to check out the podcast, all that good stuff. I appreciate all of it. And I am super excited about what the new year 2023 is going to bring with this show. So I just can't wait to keep it going.
Keep it going. All right. Well, as always, if you like this video, share it.
And
if you share it, like it. We are always happy to engage with you in the live chat. As you can see, we're happy to engage with you in the comments up to the first week that the content is up. And then after that, we're on break. So thank you as always for joining in. Until the next time, one love, peace, and God bless.